Hello, everyone. This is Sarah Zakaria. I'm Associate Director of Alumni Relations at the University of San Diego. I'm excited to have you join us today for the Young Alumni Network webinar, Permission to Live the Life You Want with alumna Nicole Matthews. The Young Alumni Network is an official affinity group of the USD Alumni Association. It is dedicated to providing professional development and social networking opportunities for alumni who graduated within the last decade. First, I would like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us this afternoon. Before we begin, please be mindful of the following. Today's webinar is being recorded. Access to the replay of this webinar will be found on the USD Alumni website and the University of San Diego YouTube channel about 1 month from today. So if you need to step away from the webinar and are interested in viewing it at a later time, the archived broadcast will be posted soon. On your screen is a control panel with a chat area where you are able to ask questions. Questions are very welcomed, and Nicole is looking forward to hearing what you have to say, so please submit your questions and we will answer as many as time allows. If you experience technical difficulties, please submit concerns via the chat area. In the event that we all experience technical difficulties during today's webinar, we will attempt to resolve the issue as soon as possible. If we are unable to do so, we will reschedule the session and an email with the new date and time will be sent to you. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's webinar presenter. Nicole Matthews is the founder and lifestyle architect of the Henley Company, a global event, travel, and lifestyle connoisseur firm based in San Diego, California. She is the author of the book Permission: Stop Competing and Start Creating the Life You Want to Live. Matthews is an adjunct professor at San Diego Mesa College and teaches through the USD continuing education. She earned a bachelor's degree from UC Davis in sociology and a master's degree in educational leadership from University of San Diego. Welcome, Nicole. We now turn the time over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Hello, everybody. Am I good on my sound? Sound is good, Sarah?
Hopefully. We can hear you great.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Well, hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be spending the next hour with you and appreciate that you've taken the time to join me today. It's always a pleasure to do something for my very proud alma mater. So thank you very, very much to the Young Alumni Network for allowing me this great opportunity. I know everybody's time is of the essence, so I want to make sure we can jump right in and get started. So I am going to begin now. So thank you again for being here. So I wanted to take some time to just kind of give you a little bit of background about who I am and how I got to this place of being a business owner and also being a new author. And so without further ado here, my early days definitely started when I was a showgirl at the age of 9, if you can believe it. I had the great fortune of being in a very advanced dance troupe, and we were able to do a show in Vegas. So I always attribute my great love of having my name in lights to a time when I was actually a showgirl at the age of 9. And I think most people probably can't say that they were actually a showgirl in headdress at the age of 9. So it's always a fun little trivia for me to share with everybody. I got my career started in the event management industry, actually, as the prom coordinator, if you can believe it. I went to high school here in San Diego, and I'm a native of San Diego. And so my career actually started as the prom coordinator when I was 17 years old. And so that's my best friend and I as we were heading off to prom back in 1991. Many of you probably weren't even born then. But I did get my love of planning events and being in the event industry all the way back to when I was the prom coordinator. And when reunions come around, my high school friends like to remind me that I was the prom coordinator, so why not plan the reunion as well, to which I always politely decline. And so where I am today is actually a really fun story to share. I have been the business owner of a company called the Henley Company, which is a global event, travel, and lifestyle management company. And I started that business just shy of 8 years ago. I had a long career in corporate America. my very first job out of college at UC Davis was actually at USD, where I was the assistant director of alumni relations for almost 5 years and had a great fortune of working for John Trifoletti, or Triff as he's so lovingly known as. So if any of you know Triff, you know that that would have been a great chapter of my life. After I left USD, I created an opportunity for myself, having just completed my master's degree at USD. I created an opportunity for myself to move to London and work as a consultant for 4 months, which was a really great time for me. I did some consulting in event management and also sort of marketing and business development for a company just based just outside of London. When I returned back to San Diego, after being a bit of a bohemian, I must admit, for several months, I landed at a law firm here in San Diego and kind of set myself on that path of the woulds and the shoulds. You know, you should go to school, get your degrees, and then you should go into corporate America and get the big fancy job. So checking off my shoulds right and left, and had found myself on the 28th floor of a skyscraper downtown, and really living the dream of having a great job and a really important sort of title, and had a lot of people really looking up to me in terms of, the firm that I worked for. The problem with me, though, was that I wasn't very happy working in corporate America anymore. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, and sort of I transitioned from the shoulds into being my own boss. A couple of things just of note about my career. I do hold a certification, which is the CSEP, which is the highest designation we have in the event management industry, something I'm very proud of. And that currently there are only just over 300 of us in the world who have that designation. And I've also been very active locally here in our event management associations, having been the past president for ISIS, which unfortunately has an unfortunate name now, but the International Special Events Society. And like Sarah said in my intro, I also have the great I'm teaching both at the community college level at Mesa College in their hospitality program, and also at USD. We offer a certificate in event management. So anybody who's looking to get into that industry, I highly recommend the USD certificate program. And then something I'm particularly proud of is, and something I'll talk about a little bit later in the webinar, the 3 pictures that you should see there are all part of my global portfolio, where I've been able to work now 2 Olympics, one in London and then one in Russia, and then also work the FIFA Confederation Cup in Brazil in 2013, along with 2 Super Bowls. And so all of that global work has really been a great addition to my professional portfolio. So just a little bit about me, just to kind of bring you up to speed on who this voice is at the other end of the phone. In addition to that, oops, we've skipped ahead. Where's my picture? There should be a picture there, but there should be a picture of my book, which actually is Permission. The book is Permission, Stop Competing and Start Creating the Life You Want to Live. And I wrote that book back in 2013 and had it published at the end of last year. For all of you aspiring writers, I can tell you that writing is far easier than getting your book published. So use that as a word of caution. But I wrote my book Permission after I really felt like I had come through a lot of sort of personal challenges, personal moments, and was having some really great professional success. And I felt like it was a really nice intersection as I was having a birthday that was taking me into a new decade. And I had students who would often say to me, I want to be just like you when I grow up, because it's exciting to hear about somebody who gets to work the Olympics or owns their own business, or, really gets to do some really cool projects. But what everybody needs to understand is that everybody has a backstory, right? And just because you see that person in the front of the classroom or on stage being the keynote speaker doesn't mean that they haven't had their own personal journey of challenges and triumphs that they've had to overcome. And I had certainly had my share of those throughout my life as well. And so Permission for me was a place where I could sort of tell those stories and talk about moments of crisis and moments of failure, and then also really talk about how I picked myself back up after those experiences and eventually was able to create my own company, create my own opportunities to work globally, and to really be, very active in designing the life that I wanted to have. So let's jump right in terms of content. When I wrote my book, Permission, I was very committed to being authentic and to being honest and to not always telling the story in a very pretty way. And so I hope you will allow me that opportunity today to get very real with you as I share my story. It's not always easy to be able to share the difficult moments of my life, but I think they're important to be able to talk about them and to be able to share them, because as I have shared them now with my book, I really find that we are so much more alike than we are different, and people have very similar stories. And it's when we really start sharing those stories with each other that we find the value in friendships and the value in life. So one of the areas that I talk about in my book is acknowledge and process what is keeping me locked up. And so what I write about in this particular chapter is a couple of, humbling stories. So let me take you back to when I was 16 years old and I was in a store shopping, just as 16-year-old girls do. And I was standing in the clothing department and I was flipping through, dresses on a rounder. And I heard this little giggle come from in between the dresses. And I realized that there was a little child that probably was playing hide and go seek from her mom. But although I could hear mom's frantic, calling out of her name and wondering where she is, I didn't think that maybe the little girl realized that mom wasn't playing the game either. So eventually what happened is this little girl came bounding out between the dresses. And she was darling with very long pigtails and a pink shirt and little blue leggings. And she looked at me, and with all of her might, she said to me, "You are the ugliest woman in the world." And at 16 years old, that was devastating to me. I had already been suffering with low self-esteem, as many teenage girls were. I had many friends, but I had a very small circle of, those really important people in my life. And at that point, I was still longing for my first boyfriend. And so when a little girl said to me out loud the words that I had often wondered in my head, it pretty much cemented in my head that I was indeed the ugliest girl in the world. Now, most people would have said, kids will be kids and out of the mouths of babes, but I took that to heart. And what that little girl did to me is she basically tattooed onto my soul the words, "You are the ugliest girl in the world," for a very, very, very long time. That then led me to have some pretty severe anxiety and some depression as I moved into my 20s. And so things were difficult. On the outside, I looked like I was coping very well, but on the inside, much like a duck sort of paddling underwater, I always felt very anxious and I always felt like I didn't really fit in. So I'm telling this story to you because, not because I want you to feel sorry for me that I think I'm the ugliest girl in the world, but because it really speaks to the fact that we have things that happen to us, we have things that are done to us, that are said to us, that some people may be able to shrug off. But in my situation and in many other situations, these are the words that really start to wound us, and it becomes the lens in which we look through our life. With this belief that I had convinced myself of, thanks to this little girl, I was the shy girl. I was the girl who wasn't going to put herself forward into situations, and particularly situations that involved boys. I was never comfortable in those situations. And so I let this become sort of the perception of my life. And as I got older and into my 20s, I realized that this was really hindering my confidence. It was hindering my relationships. It was hindering my friendships because I was living in so much doubt. And it wasn't until I really took the time. Writing the book was a great help to me in terms of being very cathartic. It wasn't until I took the time to really deal with what that little girl had said to me so long ago, and realizing that that was one opinion and that did not need to become the heavy burden that I was to wear for the rest of my life. So I challenge you to think about things that are haunting you from days past, and identify how they are working into your personal life and into your professional life. Because when you don't feel particularly attractive, that starts to shape the way that you go after job opportunities. You start to doubt yourself in ways that you probably shouldn't. And so I really want to share that story with you, because I think it's important that people look to, what has happened to us previously and how is it impacting the life that we're currently living. At the end of each chapter in Permission, I ask the reader to do a couple of, exercises. And so I'll just pull out a few for you here. And I want you to think about how these are impacting where you are in your life now, and particularly in your career. I know today we want to talk about sort of giving yourself permission in your career, but if we don't deal with the personal stuff, it's really hard to move forward with the professional journey that we're on. So challenge yourself to ask, what is keeping you locked up? Do you have relationships that are prohibiting you from moving forward? Is there some career choices that you've made or perhaps not made yet that are keeping you locked up? And are there some personal issues that you still really need to deal with? I often say, what is the tape in your head? Right? It's that tape, that videotape, if you will, from days gone past, when we all used to have to actually put in a tape cassette or a VHS tape. But it's that tape in our head. I should probably say the MP3 now in your head. What is that saying about you? And what is that constant doubt or that thing that you've convinced yourself of that actually nobody else around you believes? Nobody else around me believed that I was the ugliest girl in the world. And yet I allowed that tape to continue to play in my head, which was mental. I'm a big believer that you need to have a concierge circle that you can lean on, people who you can turn to. I call this your small but mighty group of women or friends that you can lean on when you need that extra level of support. We are so quick to sort of hold in our own burdens, but when we start sharing with like-minded people, it can really be incredibly therapeutic and cathartic. So as we move on to the next topic, I just want to leave you with those questions, and hopefully something there resonates with you. So be the architect of my own life. What do I mean with this? So as I started in my intro by telling you, I landed at a law firm here in San Diego, very prestigious firm. Really lucky to have that job. I was feeling like I had made it, because that's the should, right? You should get this great job up in, on the 28th floor and be able to tell people that you drive your BMW to work every day and have this great business card and this, all this important work that you're doing. But the reality is, very quickly, and I like to say it was actually the third day I was at the firm, I realized I was in the wrong spot. And so I got to the point of working at the firm that I would hope that there would be traffic when I would drive to work in the morning. Most people, are praying for the opposite. I hoped there'd be traffic because it gave me a reason to be late. I hoped that I would always have meetings outside of the office so that I would have some, freedom, if you will, during the day. And I really just, hoped that there would be, maybe a car accident or something minor that, again, would prohibit me from going to the office that day. Now, let me tell you, as somebody who is now in their fourth decade of life, when you get to that place where you're praying for a car accident, you're probably in the wrong spot. And as I tell this story a lot, I have so many people who come up to me and say, "You're right. I'm just like you. I drive to work every day with this dread in my gut that I'm going to work to a place that I don't want to go to." And so when I got to that point of praying for traffic and car accidents, I realized I needed to do some inner thinking about and some soul searching about where I really wanted my life to be. Now, on top of not being very happy going to work, I also was in a relationship with a man who I found to be emotionally abusive. And so things were not going well for me during this definite time of my life. And I felt like every single day between this relationship I didn't know how to get out of and a job that I should be in but didn't want to be in, my life was really falling apart. And I realized, as I found the strength to start to design the life that I wanted, that I had not let the architect of my own life really drive what I wanted. I had silenced the architect, because to really create the life you want to live takes energy, it takes emotion, it takes, tears, it takes blood, sweat, all of those things that you need to do to kind of pull yourselves up from the bootstraps and say, it's time for me to be the architect of my own life. I was finally tired of playing the shoulds. I should be in a relationship. This relationship isn't serving me. I should be in a big company. This company is no longer serving me. What I realized with my time at the law firm was that I was the problem, not the company. The company was a fantastic law firm, and I was very lucky to have the opportunity to work there and have met some lifelong friends that I, cherish from my time there. But I realized that I was the problem when I was at the law firm. And I'm a big believer that the universe puts you where you need to be so that you learn a lesson. And my lesson was that I needed to become my own boss. I realized that getting another job at a big company similar to the firm I was already at wasn't going to be the solution. That was just going to move my problems to a different address. The reality was I wasn't happy working in that sort of environment, corporate America, where we're so hindered by policy and procedure and bureaucracy. I mean, I talk about in the book about sitting in administrative meetings and talking about the number of personal photos people can have on their desk, or how much perfume somebody can wear to the office. And I thought to myself, there has to be more to my life than sitting in these meetings talking about something so completely insignificant. And so with a lot of courage, I broke up with the boyfriend that I no longer needed to be with after 3 years. And then 3 months later, almost to the day, I left my job and started my own business. And I was fortunate enough that I had been growing my business on the side. Once I realized I was the problem, and that came to me through doing a DISC assessment. And so there's a wonderful lady here in San Diego by the name of Mindy Bortness with Communication Works, Inc. And she really was the person who sort of gave me my first permission, if you will, for getting out of the law firm and telling me that that's not where you're going to thrive. It's not just that company, it's that environment where you're not going to thrive. And so when I took that to heart, I started to grow my business on the side, and eventually was able to go into my director's office, who was very supportive of my journey, and said, I can't do this anymore. And she said, I understand. And how do we make it work? And so I was very fortunate, because the firm became one of my very first clients when I was able to start my own business. So I always offer that as a little tip to anyone who wants to start their own business. Look at the company you're already working for and figure out if there's a way you can do some consulting or future projects with them. Just because you leave doesn't mean that your whole relationship with them needs to come to an end. And so for me, once I let the architect of my own life, the architect raise my flag and say, I've got this, let me handle this, it suddenly became like this train of positivity and this train of momentum to really help me get out of the places where I felt stuck, and that being the relationship and also working at the law firm. So make sure your architect is your architect is loud and proud. So what would you do right now if you knew you would not fail? We all have our intentions in life, sort of the vocation that we think will serve us. Really start to hone in on that. For me, it was starting my own business, becoming an entrepreneur, doing events at the global level, being a personal concierge. All those kinds of things were really important to me. And I knew that I needed to try them to figure out if I was going to fail or not. But I never wanted to regret not trying them. What is within your power to change today that will help you get one step closer to the life you want? Every single day, you should be working towards making a change, whatever that change might be to you. It doesn't have to be running a marathon every single day. Some days it's just as big as, lacing up your shoes. But working towards that thing that you're trying to create for yourself and letting that architect really start to help you design your life is very, very important. You need to key in on that. And then, are you the architect of your life? Can you honestly say that you are living your life, or is life living you at the moment? And those are important things to be thinking about. So who are your basement dwellers versus your penthouse cheerleaders? They often say that we are the product of, I think it's the 5 people we spend the most time with. And so if you were to make a list of, let's take it to even 10 people, right? The 10 people you spend the most time with, be it family, friends, colleagues, whatever it might be. I challenge you to make a list of who those 10 people are. And then what I want you to do is write, they are a basement dweller or a penthouse cheerleader, right? A little B or a little P next to those names on that list. So let me define what that means. So a basement dweller are going to be the people in your life who are going to constantly say, no, you shouldn't, you can't, right? These are the people who, when you come to them with an idea, are the first ones to tell you why it's not going to work. I am lucky enough now that I have a really great group of friends around me that I have designed these friendships and have cultivated these friendships, that if I came to my friends and said, I have an idea, I'm going to move to the middle of Brazil and I'm going to, live in a little mud hut on the side of the Amazon, and going to figure out how I'm going to sell jewelry to the natives in the middle of Brazil. I have set myself up now with friends who aren't going to just immediately say, oh my gosh, that's such an amazing idea. They're certainly going to challenge me in ways of thinking through an idea, but they're also going to see that if once I'm committed to something, they're going to figure out how I'm going to get there, right? These are my penthouse cheerleaders. These are the people who are going to say to me, let me figure out if Rosetta Stone has a version of the dialect of Portuguese that they speak in, the Amazon, and let me how we can create a Pinterest board for you for designing your little mud hut. And another friend would say to me, gosh, we got to figure out how you're going to have these really cute like zip on and zip off pants because, the bugs are going to be bad. All of those people are going to be people who help me to get to where I want to be, right? With, some criticism in terms of constructive criticism, making sure that I've looked through everything to really get to where I want to be. My basement dwellers are going to remind me that I don't like bugs, that I don't like to be hot, that I don't like to travel places that take too far to get to. So, beyond an airplane ride, if I have to get on a bus now for another 47 hours, that's not going to be exciting for me. These are the people who are going to tell me a million reasons why I can't do it. And the reality is that has nothing to do with if I can or can't do it. Basement dwellers see it through their own eyes. These are the people who are too afraid to make their own changes in their life, that they're going to tell you a million reasons why you can't make the change in your life. And so I want you to think about those 10 people that you spend the most time with, right? Who are your basement dwellers versus your penthouse cheerleaders? And I'd love your input, just in the chat room on kind of where you shake out with that. There's no judgment on where you are, but I really want to bring this to your attention because it's important that we clean house. I grew up with a dad who's a marine biologist, and so whales are a very big thing, in our lives because he studied them for many, many years. And so I understand this concept of barnacles, right? So when whales are born, they're not born with barnacles, but over time, as they continue swimming through the ocean, these barnacles stick to them. And I believe truly that that's what happens with friends, that we don't always realize that these friends that are our basement dwellers kind of stick to us much like a barnacle. And then eventually we wake up and we're like, who is this person? I don't even know how I'm friends with this person. They don't bring anything to my life in terms of a positive experience. And when I'm with them, I feel like I'm zapped with energy. My energy is zapped. And so really start to study kind of who you have in your life, and where can you clean house when necessary. So ask yourself, who's taking up that valuable space in your life? Are they serving you in a positive or negative way? Again, I'm not saying you need to have, these people who are the head cheerleader in your life constantly where it's rah, rah and unicorns and rainbows every single day. That's obviously not realistic. But you need to have people around you that say to you, hey, I'm thinking about going to figure out a way to work the London Olympics, and have people who say to you, yep, that's probably possible. Let's figure out how that can happen to you. And so, I really want you to think about where that person is taking up that valuable space in your life. So I challenge you to write down those top 10 people that are outside of your family, that either lift you up or keep you down. And then list your basement dwellers and your penthouse cheerleaders. I think it's a really important and interesting exercise when you really commit to it. So how to create your own opportunities by leaning on your circle. So let's bring this back to sort of career, because that's obviously where we all spend a lot of time. So a few years ago, I was sitting at my desk on a Sunday evening, and this was November of 2011, and I had long been fascinated by the fact that the London Olympics was going to be taking place in 2012. And I'm a huge Anglophile and somebody who absolutely loves the UK and has spent a lot of time traveling there and living there. And so for me, being an event professional, the holy grail of event planning for us is really the Olympics, right? What bigger event is there in the world? And so the combination of always wanting to work in Olympics and then having it be in my absolute favorite city on earth really became the motivator for me to figure out how I was going to get to the Olympics. Now, as much as I like to believe I'm very talented in the job that I do as an event planner, I knew being, 10,000 miles away from London, nobody from London was necessarily going to come knock on my door and say, hey, event planner, would you like to spend 2 months living in London working the Olympics? So I needed to create an opportunity for myself to do that. And so on that Sunday evening in November of 2011, I drafted an email and I sent an email out to everyone in my circle that the big disclaimer was, would they recognize my name when it landed in their inbox? So we didn't have to be best friends, but I needed to be, I needed it to go out to enough people to really cast my net wide. So I ended up sending it out to about 150 people that Sunday evening. And I have to tell you, I was overwhelmed by the support. So my email, and I give you my actual email, the exact email I wrote, which is in my book, basically said that my dream has always been to work the London Olympics, and I know somebody who can make that happen. And so I'm reaching out to help to my circle and leaning on, my colleagues to make any introductions or suggestions that might help me connect with somebody who could provide an opportunity for me. Obviously I'm looking to do, I would love to be able to use all of my skill set as an event professional, as a concierge, but I'm happy to take any job because I'm really interested in the experience. And lucky for me, I was able to have one of my colleagues at Mesa College who had previously worked Olympic Games. She made an introduction for me to a company that does sponsorship activation for the Olympics, FIFA, and global worldwide events. And with that then came the opportunity for me to interview and be selected as a freelancer to be able to move to London in 2012. And I spent 2 months working in London before and during the Olympics. And just the cherry on top of that experience was, as I said to you in my email, that I'm happy to do any job because of my work experience in events and as a personal concierge. They work with the CEO of one of the major Olympic sponsors, and I was able to be his personal concierge and manage his entire itinerary from start to finish during the Olympic experience. And so I was very, very fortunate to have an unbelievable position presented to me. That's one of those things of when luck and hard work, come together, then an opportunity is created. But the only reason that experience happened is because I was very bold, telling everyone I possibly knew that I wanted to work the Olympics. And what that also did for me is that it held me accountable, because as I would see these people around town or run into them or have meetings with them, oftentimes they would say, oh, hey, have you figured out how to get to London yet? Are you working the Olympics? Now, I didn't certainly want to be the girl who had sent out this big plea to all these different people and then say, oh, no, actually, I haven't done anything to move forward with that, right? So telling the world what I was looking for really started to hold me accountable, which is an important part of creating your own opportunities. I was fortunate enough that about 30 people of that list that I sent out to all sent me suggestions, contacts, introductions. And how wonderful is that? What an amazing positive swell of support for these people. What I found is that I then became that person that they all got to live vicariously through. They all wanted to know about my experience, how I was getting there, and then they were so eager to hear about my experience, something very, very unique as I was actually in the midst of it. And so I journaled my experience and shared that with a lot of, a lot of the people in my circle, because I also wanted to say thank you to them for creating the opportunity for me. And even though they might not have been directly responsible for making the introduction that eventually changed everything, but they were important because they were on my side, and they were the positive energy and the support and the encouragement that I needed as I was going through that experience. And so I want to encourage you to think about what opportunities you want in your own life, and how do you make a big ask? How do you tell people that you are searching for something, or looking for a certain opportunity? I think we're all very quick to just say, how are you? Fine, I'm fine. And nobody ever talks about what they really need in terms of help. I wish we would say, instead of how are you, how can I help you? What is there something I can do today to help you to move one step closer to, the dream that you're trying to accomplish? It could be big and small. I mean, you could spend all day long trying to research or find that right person in a company to connect with. But if you had just said to me, you know what, I'm trying to find this person that does X, Y, Z, I might very well have that person in my Rolodex or in my sphere, and I can make an introduction to you, instantly. And so by just sharing with each other and being more open with each other in terms of, what it is we're looking for, where is the help that we need, leaning on our circle to help us, is really, really, and it's an exciting thing. And it's kind of one of those things that I've just really incorporated now into my life. I mean, now, obviously, I'm not running around asking everybody for help and not giving that back. You absolutely have to reciprocate when other people are in need. But I've been very fortunate that, by getting to London, that's now created other global opportunities for me. And that all started because I had the courage to simply ask for help. And I really want you to remember that that's a very powerful tool that you have in your arsenal. So think about, what opportunities can you create for yourself, right? Who can you ask for help? It can be colleagues, it can be family, LinkedIn, social media are all amazing tools to really help. I am obsessed with Twitter, and I use Twitter, every single day. And I use it also as a place for me to just ask for help. Does anybody know XYZ? Does anybody know the answer to this kind of question? And it's amazing how a community of people will come together to really help, a fellow community member. So don't be shy about asking for help. I think it's a really important part of our everyday existence. And then also think about what motivates you, what drives you to be successful. One of the exercises I often have my students do is I say that we're going to host a dinner party, and they can invite 5 people, living, dead, fictional, real, whoever it might be. And when they identify who they want those 5 people to be at their dinner table, it's interesting to see what the characteristics are of those people, sort of the justification of why they would invite that person. Oftentimes we find our motivation in exercises like that. Think about who it is that you would want to surround yourself with, and really start to derive those qualities from those people. So as we come to a near conclusion here, I want you to remember that the airlines tell us to put on our oxygen mask first before helping small children or others who may need your assistance. And in spite of what everyone else might have told you your whole life, I'm going to give you permission to be completely selfish. Now, I'm not saying you get to have the biggest piece of cake, or, get to choose all of the pizza toppings, because it's just all about you. But what I want you to think about is being selfish in terms of what's best for your life, not what's best for your parents' vision of your life, or your friends, or your colleagues. But I really want you to think about what's best for your life, and think about putting on your own oxygen mask first in terms of personal, professional directions in your life, then that before you're really, exhausting yourself by helping everyone else. As I said to you, when I was at the law firm, I was in the shoulds, right? My parents were very proud of me because I was well educated. I now had the big time job, but I was not fulfilled in that. I was broken every single day when I went there, because it wasn't really where I belonged. It wasn't the work I knew that I wanted to take on for the rest of my life. And so, do you have moments like that? Are you in a place right now where you feel like you're in the shoulds and you really want to be somewhere else? So remember to put on your own oxygen mask before you can help anybody else. And then I will leave you with this wonderful quote from Winnie the Pooh. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And I think that is really just so beautiful and summarizes kind of where we all are in our lives with our own vulnerabilities and our own insecurities and our own strengths. And so I leave that with you for today. So thank you. The showgirl will take a little final bow here. I would love to hear about your story and your journey. And if I can help with any way, please let me know. You're welcome to connect with me via email. I've put my email there. On Twitter, you can find me at HenleyCo or site at thehenleycompany.com. And my book Permission is available on Amazon. And I'm always happy to sign those copies for you if you'd like a signed copy. So I will open it up. Sarah, open it up to questions now.
Yes. If you have any questions for Nicole, please type those into the chat area. Nicole, I want to thank you so very much for this wonderful presentation. I enjoyed learning more about you and your path and your journey, and learning to give ourselves permission to live the life that we want and to be true to ourselves.
Yes.
I think that's a theme we all need to hear over and over again.
And it seems so, it just seems like everybody should know that, right? But as I'm getting older and I am learning more and maybe wisdom is coming in with age and experience, I just feel like that's the piece. We're so quick to give other people permission first, permission to go do something, and we don't give ourselves that permission. And that's I think it's a really important piece that times we're missing. And I was missing it for a very long time. I mean, in the book, I tell other stories, about times when I was heartbroken and, things. Now, I don't want you to think you're going to read Permission and it's about this sad, pathetic girl. It does have a happy ending, and it talks about how I've overcome those challenges, but I also wanted to be very authentic in terms of it hasn't always been roses. And I grew up in a phenomenal home. I have wonderful parents who have been married nearly 48 years. It's kind of Beaver Cleaver land over here. And, I'm very lucky. And I always think if that could happen to me growing up in a setting that was so supportive, what is it like for people who don't share that same experience? And so, permission is a powerful thing. And I just encourage everybody to really think about giving themselves permission first and foremost.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. If we
being typed.
Yeah, we might have a question, but while we're waiting to see if any questions get typed in, I want to thank everyone for your participation, for attending. We'd also like to thank Nicole Matthews. In addition, I'd like to thank the Young Alumni Network for hosting this webinar. There are many ways to connect to USD. Oh, I do have a question here.
Yep.
Janine says, you mentioned that you focused on the shoulds first. Would you say that it is necessary first step, even in a career job, is not necessarily the best place for you at that time? How would you handle the financial aspects of creating the life you want if it seems like you should go to the corporate route first to build income?
I think I think it's a great question. So thank you, Janine, for asking that question. To do things and sort of take side roads, if you will, on our journey. So I understand we all have bills that need to be paid, which is why I stayed at the law firm for 5 years, right? So we all have things that we have to do and sort of sacrifices that we have to make. There's absolutely no reason why you can't be going to your 9 to 5 should every single day, right? But on the evenings and weekends, really working towards whatever it is that you'd rather be doing. So, so for me, I'm working 9 to 5, getting my nice paycheck coming in, but then I was very committed to growing my business on the side, getting my business to a place where I felt like I had enough income coming in separate from the law firm that would allow me to make that jump. I would caution you though, when you are working sort of that 9 to 5 traditional job, that when you are trying to create something on the side, oftentimes, if that's not the thing that's going to feed you and pay your bills, it kind of becomes a hobby, right? And so you want to be cautious about, oh, I'll get to that, or I'm tired today, so I won't work on my business, knowing full well that you have that regular paycheck coming in, so I would set yourself a timeline. Say, listen, I'm going to be in this job for a year or 2 years, but in that 2 years, I'm going to leave, December 15th of 2018 or 2017. And by then I'm challenging myself to make sure that I have enough business that I can move into and whatever it else is that I want to be doing. So I totally get, I'm not saying we just run around being rogue in our life and we're just going to be these gypsies that run around and have no financial responsibilities. I get, we all have to do what we need to do to get by and to pay our bills and to have that security. But there's no reason that you can't be doing something else on the side. If you don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, and that's Vaynerchuk. He started, he's a huge internet sensation. He started Wine Library and now has a major social media and marketing firm. Look up Gary Vaynerchuk if you need motivation about hustle, because really what it all comes down to is the hustle that you need, and how much time you're going to give to growing that you want to be doing, not the thing that you should be doing. So hopefully that answered your question, Janine. I see another question has popped in.
Yes. We have another question. Who or what is your typical client of your current firm, and what does a given engagement look like?
So for us, a typical client is mostly corporate and social on the event planning side. So we do a lot of corporate events. Obviously, that's my background, is in corporate events. And then we also do some social events. And then on the personal concierge or lifestyle management side, we actually work with busy executives and their families. So we do a lot of travel coordination, personal assistance, household management, personal shopping. Anything that's on a client's to-do list is what we're there to support them with. So we'll do in-home entertaining, event planning for them, that kind of thing. But then we also have clients and corporations that we do events with on the event side of the business. And what does a current engagement look like? I don't know if you're asking about project fees or what, but on the event side, it's always a project fee for us. And then on the personal concierge side, we do usually do a monthly retainer. So a client knows that they have access to us for 5, 10, 15, 20 hours a month. And that's a monthly retainer for our services. So hopefully, Curtis, now you're asking about how I market. How do I market those services to develop new business? So for me, marketing, a big piece of it is word of mouth, because when you are in the concierge business and also the event business, what you're really selling is trust. People need to trust you to be in their home. People need to trust you to plan their perfect day for them. And so for me, that referral piece is very, very important. I also just went through a major rebrand in terms of my own company. So website, logo, everything. That has been hugely helpful, because with the website has come better search results and that kind of thing. And then I also am very big into social media. That's a huge piece for me. And I'm very active in social media. And so we are making connections with clients in that capacity as well. Oh, next question I see.
Oh, we have another question here. Do you want me to read it for you? Thank you for sharing these insights. Your talk is also a reminder for us to those to seek to elevate and assist in the penthouse image versus staying in the basement and pulling others down. I like the idea of being more specific about offering my help versus remaining in the platitudes when greeting others. And I really appreciated that too. Thank you, Lori, for sharing that. It's one of those customs, that we go through, but being authentic can start in these, everyday greetings that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just wrote an article for Elephant Journal, if anybody reads Elephant Journal, which is a huge online publication. And I wrote an article called Fine is the Other F Word. And I talk about how much I dislike the word fine, because I think for me, when we say, how are you? I'm fine. Fine to me means I'm stagnant. I'm not growing. I'm not stretching. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not underwhelmed. I'm not all of those things. I'm just sort of content. And at least me, I don't really like to be in a place of content. I mean, sure, I'd like to know I have a roof over my head and, a car that works and all those kinds of things. But I think content means that you aren't growing and challenging yourself. And so, if you would like to, you can just go on to elephantjournal.com and then just do a search for my name and you'll find my article that was just published last month on Fine. The question about which book would I recommend by Gary Vaynerchuk? Anything. Like, I love him. I follow him on every social media channel. He is my morning meditation. He does little videos all of the time. Take the 5 minutes to watch his stuff that for every day. He has his new book is called something about a right hook. Which is great. The Thank You Economy, I think, is one of his first books. That's really great too. But just literally follow him, be motivated by him. He is an absolute rock star. I have a huge business crush on Gary Vaynerchuk. So I hope you will share in the joy of him as well.
That's very cute. Well, if we have one more question, we'll take one more question and then we're going to close for today. Thank you so much. This was a really great discussion, and thank you everyone for your participation. I see one more question that's about to come through. Do you have any other book recommendations that lead you on the permission path?
Yes, I do. And I'm going to flip to the back of Permission, the copy I have in my hand, where I actually give you all of my resources. So I love Simon T, like in Tom, Bailey, Bailey. Simon has a slew of different books, and he runs what's called the Brilliance Institute. He's a dear friend of mine, has become a dear friend of mine, but was in love with all of his content before that. And Simon is that guy who's going to give you the kick in the pants that you need, but he's going to do it in a really soft and generous way. And I always know that whenever I talk to Simon, I'm going to be different on the other side of that conversation in a positive way. So I love all the stuff that Simon writes. I love every word that comes out of Richard Branson's mouth. And so definitely follow him in terms of being an entrepreneur and really creating, companies out of your comfort zone. So I think that's really great stuff as well. I told you about my love of Gary Vaynerchuk. If you want some instant motivation, make sure you check out Steve Jobs' commencement address from when he spoke to Stanford years ago. It's on YouTube, so you can find that. I show that in my classes every semester. I think it's just a really great motivator as well. And then from a business standpoint, my friend Marley Major, and it's Majcher, she owns a company called The Party Goddess as well as The Profit Goddess. And she teaches small businesses how to really make money in their companies and how to kind of get your stuff out of the way that's hindering you from moving forward. So she's a great permission motivator for me as well. So I love the E-Myth as well. The EMYTH. And so that's a great business motivator as well. But read as much as you can, online journals, Elephant Journal, all kinds of things like that you can read every single day. I know we're all busy, but just use it as your own meditation to just take 10, 15 minutes and just see what other words people are putting out there. So hopefully that helps you. And see a follow-up they're inspired by some follow-up question or comments. So let's see what they're going to say here.
Well, thank you, Nicole. This was a lively discussion. Okay, so we had one last question. Can you talk a little bit about DISC?
So the DISC assessment, very quickly, very much like the Myers-Briggs. If you just Google DISC assessment, and then like I said earlier, Mindy, for those of you in San Diego, Mindy Bortness with Communication Works Inc. can help you. But DISC identifies what your communication styles are and where your values are in terms of work. So for me, being autonomous, being an entrepreneur is more important to me than, say, the security of a 2-week paycheck, if you will. And so DISC starts to identify what your values are and your communication styles on how you fit into companies and what your role should be within those organizations. So definitely Google DISC assessment. And I think you can take the test either online, like a mini version of that, and then somebody like Mindy, who's certified in DISC, can really help you to analyze. You get like a Bible, like the Nicole Bible, not truly called a Bible, but like tells you everything about yourself after you take the test. It's really, really awesome. So well worth the time and money to do that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I am going to close now. There are many ways to connect to the University of San Diego and USD Alumni Association through social media. We are also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Flickr, and YouTube. You can also connect through us through in-person social and networking events. We have an OC community service event happening on June 6th, a social sailing in Oceanside also on June 6th, and a Hillcrest happy hour in San Diego on June 25th. No matter where you are, you're a Torero for life. Thank you again and have a fantastic day.